My boss called me into his office one day. At the time, I was chief investment officer for a key private bank up in Cleveland. He made a decision that he wanted to bring in someone that he had worked with before, which meant that he no longer needed me. At some level, that was difficult to receive, but at another level, it was frankly a relief. I was a bit burned out, having done the large corporate big job, and it felt like I needed to have a change. So we made the decision to move back to North Carolina, and that I was going to retire early and basically see where did God lead us from that point. Built a house there and began a life, just the two of us enjoying life together.
Once Tim retired, it was great. We were able to hang out whenever we wanted to, and it was a gift of time to connect deeper before we became empty nesters.
I really enjoyed the life of retirement, friends and extra time with Ann, but there was a sense that God had given me something that I was wasting. Generosity has always been an important part of our lives. We wanted to continue that spirit of generosity, but I had no income, at least no income of a traditional sense. So it required us to think differently around what generosity looked like. It began to develop this thought that in some respects I wasn't being a good steward of the resources that God had given me, specifically the productive capacity that I still had.
We felt like maybe we were getting a little too inactive with watching maybe way too much Netflix during the day, which was kind of this new thing and maybe not so good.
I felt like God had entrusted me with a talent and that I had kind of buried it a bit too soon, and that I needed to take that productive energy and either use it directly for kingdom purposes or use it indirectly for kingdom purposes, find a job, which then in turn would make it easier for us to give more. It was on a Sunday morning in January of 2018. I was sitting at the breakfast table, just thumbing through LinkedIn, and happened upon an advertisement in my feed for a chief investment officer position in Greensboro, North Carolina. When I read it, it was like, that's not a coincidence. I don't know if it's divine intervention, but it's something that I ought to look into. I sent in my information electronically, reached out to the recruiter for the job, and that then began the process that ultimately led to me making a decision to re-enter the workforce. I have no idea whether God directed that ad to be placed in LinkedIn and happened to show up on my feed, but I do absolutely believe that God allowed that to be used for His purposes. I did it because I felt like God wanted me to do it. He had worked in my heart to say, you have a talent that I have provided, and I want you to use that for kingdom purposes.